Welcome back to another sci-fi episode, where today we'll continue to examine how we think, feel, and behave with money, especially during times of financial uncertainty. Since January, federal civilians have gotten somewhat of a shakeup and somewhat of a wake-up call. So I designed this class as a way to empower individuals, whether they were thinking of accepting the delayed resignation program or they were thinking of accepting the early retirement that came out a little later, and overall just how to prepare themselves financially should another opportunity arise or another anxiety-provoking strategy came out so that they could feel confident in their money-making decisions. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to make sure that the civilian workforce felt empowered instead of focusing on things they can't control, focusing on the things that they can control, and even reframing some of the things that they thought were negative and really pointing out that some of these things that you thought were triggers or anxiety provokers were actually things that over time will have promoted growth for each individual. So for example, now knowing that not every federal civilian, just because you've reached your tenure or you have achieved your probationary status or have gone beyond your probationary status, doesn't mean that you are secure for life in that position. So just other things as well beyond finances, keeping your resume updated and things of that nature. What I did want to do is I wanted to bring home or drive home somewhat of a metaphor as we are navigating through this financial uncertainty of thinking of it as being on a ship and navigating treacherous waters. Sometimes that water is beautiful, it's peaceful, it's calm, and folks flock to the beach just to see that serene scene. Yet other times the water is choppy and it's dangerous. So we want to make sure that we have the tools necessary. So I started right off the bat with a question. Just to get you prepared, remember the game you'd play as a kid or even with your kids? You would ask, if you knew you would end up on a deserted island, what 3 things would you bring with you? And if you notice, this game really gets to the heart of what you or your kids need most. Is it safety, comfort, or pure survival? So for many of us, it feels like we might be on that deserted island right now and are doing what we can to survive. But I wanted to share with you some of the input from the folks that played along. Some said the 3 things I would bring: a knife, flint, canteen. That makes sense, right? Another said matches, axe, knife, book. And now we're moving into something that would keep them comforted and even keep them somewhat occupied and distracted. Another one put a journal and a pen and a knife. The smarter individual, the more strategic individual put satellite phone, right? And that's not to say that the others weren't smart. Again, it just shows the need for comfort or survival, whatever your responses are. And someone even said a boat, fuel, and a machete. So again, you can see the different types of things that folks were wanting. And even some put Bible on there as well. So again, shows you the difference in what people will find as comforting on this deserted island and help them survive while they're there. So then I changed the question just a little bit and kind of posed it this way. That, sometimes it can feel as if we don't, like we're already on that deserted island. What if we knew we were going to lose one paycheck or maybe 25% of our paycheck because we had to find a quick job, but it was a less paying job? And so I asked the question, what would you, let me actually read you the question. Financial uncertainty can feel like you're on a deserted island or up a creek without a paddle. If you knew financial hardship was on its way, what 3 things would you do differently? So just like in that initial question, what 3 things would you bring with you if you knew that you were going to be on a deserted island? This changes it up a little bit. If you knew financial hardship was on its way, What 3 things would you do differently? And so here's some of the responses. Stop eating out as much, quit drinking, increase my TSP contributions. And notice, first response, that is something that is within that person's control. Another person said save, invest, and consolidate. So they're thinking more of debt as well as saving for the future. And then you have also cutting spending, cleaning up my resume, and even downsizing. So again, it just goes to show what might be happening in each of these individual lives as they respond the way that they're responding. Another one said, cut off non-essentials and consolidate debt. Again, this person's in a completely different place than the person who wants to increase their TSP and stop eating out as much. And then you have others that are saying stop subscriptions, increase savings, and buy only the essentials at a grocery store. So if you can hear this, and I didn't read them all, there are so many things that could be done that is within a person's level of control on an individual level that they can start doing now to better prepare for financial uncertainty. So we talked first about navigational tools. So again, we're on that ship and we're using the metaphor of navigating through financial uncertainty or navigating through different types of waters. So the first thing we need is a financial map or a destination. Where are we headed financially? What use is your income without that direction? And knowing that direction is driven by destination, where do I want to be financially in 6 months, 5 years, 10 to 15 years, etc.? And that goes back to just asking that one simple question and finding where people's comforts lie. What 3 things would you do differently if you knew financial hardship was on its way? They already knew what they needed to do. And I would say that many of the folks that took this class, they probably didn't even consider that externally outside of that class. And so now they have a framework to work from. Now they have a financial map. So where do you want to be when you retire? And not just physically, but financially, emotionally, relationally. What would let you know that you made it? And so this again is where this destination or financial map will be useful for you in navigating financial uncertainty. So if you knew your destination, you could plan and at least feel some sense of control. And again, that goes back to the questions that we were asking before. So one of the things that we talk about too is the different tools that you can use as part of this navigation. Looking ahead to remain on course, like having that ability to see what might be in front of you. I know that we can't predict the future, but we can get out our financial binoculars and at least see what might be in the distance for us that we need to plan for or look out for. And one way of doing that, the best financial tool that's available to us in that regard is a cash flow analysis. And from that cash flow where you are calculating how much income you're bringing in and how many expenses you have going out, creating a spend plan from that cash flow analysis. Now assigning every dollar a job and making sure that the spend plan is taking you where you actually want to go rather than just teetering along, drifting on that driftwood, not even knowing when you're going to get to your destination. Another tool is knowing your net worth. That measures your wealth. When you know what your wealth looks like, when you have that calculation, you know where you are currently, and then from there you work to know where you want to be. So at least it gives you reference. And then another navigational tool is PowerPay, and that's used for debt management. It's a free resource where you can plug in the numbers and make yourself a repayment plan. No fees, no contracts involved whatsoever. So sure, when it comes to navigating financial uncertainty, it's good to know what has happened that will not be helpful. So maybe after this initial shakeup in the federal workforce, you look back and say, wow, I was not prepared if I were let go because I did not meet probationary status or because I wasn't performing as well as I know I should have been. You can look back and say, okay, maybe not knowing where that was going to take me, okay, but at the same time, now I know what I can do differently. So it doesn't help to beat yourself up so badly that you can't move forward. If anything, we want to get you to a place where you feel worthy enough to make those next steps. So you can inflation-proof your spend plan and your portfolio by 1, living below your means, and 2, saving money. I mean, those are just different ways to navigate those treacherous waters, because I guarantee you the folks who had savings, the folks who weren't involved in a lot of debt, and folks who had put together a financial plan probably weren't as shaken up. I'm sure there was some disappointment. Oh my goodness, if I lose my job, this was in my financial plan. It wouldn't be desirable, but at least I have the ability to survive until I get a new job. So I wouldn't want to speak for anyone just because they had savings or they had a financial plan. But here are some dangers we need to look for, especially when those waters start getting a little more choppy. When we're not tracking our spending, we are not seeing where our money is going. And that is definitely a sign of turbulent waters, because we cannot at least visualize where we're going to land if we're not tracking after we've created that beautiful spend plan. Living above our means, we just talked about that. Or it's not just living above your means, it's living at 2 incomes. So it used to be, and this ages me, I know, but when I grew up, I always got the advice, hey, when you get married and you have a dual income, try to live off 1 income, because you never know when one of you might lose your job or might not want to work because maybe a child comes into the family and you're wanting to adjust and make smarter financial decisions while you're taking some time off from work, or you just refuse to pay childcare for whatever reason. It is rather expensive these days. So there could be many reasons why living at 2 incomes may not be the best idea. And so that could create what we would call a tsunami, or at least create favorable conditions for a tsunami, where one emergency completely wipes out both incomes. So again, we want to learn to live at 1 income, or at least live below our means. This is not Olivia saying, oh, we got to now learn how to live just at 1 income. No, that's just some old advice that absolutely can be tailored to your individual situation and your individual needs. But giving above your means is another danger. It's one thing to live above your means, but another to give above your means, where it just creates rocky shores for those relationships, all relationships involved. No tax planning is another danger that creates groundswell. Then you're eaten up by this never-ending rising water of taxes. And we want to reduce your tax liability, not increase your tax liability. And then another danger is not estate planning, where you have that rip current that comes in, and if in that rip current pulls you both under, if one of you passes, then all of a sudden, if there's no income that is left over, you don't know how to access that income or those benefits, then you're both under. I have a quote here that I really like by Florence Nightingale. Were there none who were discontented with what they have, the world would never reach anything better. Let me say that again. Were there none who were discontented with what they have, the world would never reach anything better. So I'm talking about these dangers. I'm talking about this uncertainty, not to scare you further, but just to help you understand that there's probably some financial discontentment in your life. And it's okay to have that level of discontentment so that you can actually create a better life for yourself. And it would provide some level of direction of what you need to do next. So then I had another poll within this class. I asked, hey, if you knew that you could transform your life by doing one thing for 5 minutes a day, would you do it? Now, all the respondents said yes. So I had 100% of the folks say yes. And I felt a little bad after because I kind of got onto them a little bit. I said, this is what you call the halo effect, where you want your instructor to view you favorably because of how you answered. Because we know that that's not true, that we know doctors would laugh at that, physical therapists would laugh at that, financial therapists, financial counselors, you name it. A lot of folks are not putting in the 5 minutes a day for life transformational work. We would like to think that we would put in the time every day to do something different that would reduce our financial uncertainty. But truly, when it comes to actually sitting down and doing those things, a lot of folks aren't doing them. 5 minutes a day times 30 days is 2.5 hours. Are people really spending 2.5 hours a month on their finances? No. A lot of folks may not really be putting the effort in according to what they desire. I gave the example of physical therapy. There's one exercise that I have done consistently since I have heard from my physical therapist, the number one stretch to reduce back pain, especially lower back pain, is a hamstring stretch. And I remember the physical therapist saying, all you have to do 60 seconds a day, and you will see a big difference. I took her up on that, and I started doing 60 seconds a day. And it was a he and a her. I had several physical therapists and physical therapy assistants voicing the same thing over and over again. So I took them all up on it. And every day, I do 60 seconds of hamstring stretches to reduce lower back pain. And I will tell you, it is effective. So here's the question. If you're not willing to do 5 minutes a day, because thinking, wow, 5 minutes a day times 30 days, 2.5 hours, geez, I probably really wouldn't spend that much time on my finances. Would you be willing to do the one thing in your financial portfolio for 60 seconds a day that will transform your financial life? I hope the answer is yes, because 60 seconds a day times 30 days is only 30 minutes. And that's all I'm asking from my clients is, hey, at the end of every month, create your budget, go back and look at how you spent. After you've tracked your spending, how well did you do? Where were you off? Where do you need to readjust? That can be done within 30 minutes once a month. So think of it that way. Doing something in your financial life for 60 seconds a day could truly be life transformational. And that might include spending the 60 seconds a day it takes to track your spending. I do that with an app on my phone. And anytime I get a Java, anytime I spend money in other areas that doesn't come directly out of my account, I'm tracking where that money is going. So here's another one. Unlocking your motivation. So when we talk about discontentment, I gave that one from Florence Nightingale. I'll give the other by Dale Alexander, certified financial planner. He said, lasting change equals a passionate discontent and a powerful vision. So I asked people to answer in the chat, what do all financial emergencies have in common? And there were some different responses. But here's what I said. What do all financial emergencies have in common? Other than impeccable timing, you can plan for them. So this is where that powerful vision can come in. No one can predict the emergency, but you can predict that something in the future needs your attention in the present. And it might be tied to that passionate discontent. So give that anxiety that you felt last week or in January, especially as a federal civilian, or right now, that purpose to prepare for the next emergency. So then we have the vitamin C's of regaining control. Again, we're on that navigational travel or journey on our boat. And so these are the vitamin C's of regaining control. So we want to avoid the scurvy and get our vitamin C at least once daily. And so here they are, curb spending. And this is the way that you can feel like you have some sense of control and focusing again on what you can control. So that might be breaking up with Amazon and DoorDash until the emergency is past and accepting that you're in a financial emergency and behaving like it. Another one, call your creditors. Simply asking them to change the due date. It can buy you time. Then we have collect. Collect from whom or what can give you fast cash. And I'm not talking about going to a payday loan. I'm talking about collecting cash from who owes you money. It's time to pass around the coffers throughout the household, whether it's an adult child, a friend, or other family member. And listen, they are more likely to give during a financial emergency because they also need shelter, and usually it's shelter that you're providing them. Also, another way to collect, what assets can you sell? You might have something sitting in a lot or in a storage facility that is just rotting, but someone else can breathe new life into it and pay you good money for it. Another is connect. Use your resources. And for those who are not active duty or who are not retirees from a military branch, United Way can direct you. You can dial 211. But those who are active duty or retirees from a military branch, you can go to your respective relief society, whether it's Army Emergency Relief, Air Force Aid, or even Navy Marine Corps Relief. So, and then the last C, the last vitamin C, is to claim the future you want. Any discomfort that you've felt since January, allow that to be your wake-up call. All right, and now let's move into allies, and these are your anchors for your boat and moving you towards that financial destination. So here is a quote by Isaac Newton: "When two forces unite, their efficiency doubles." So alliances cannot be formed in isolation. This is where you can reach out, connect with other people, find a money mentor. And again, if you are here at Team Redstone Arsenal and are eligible for financial readiness, I can help you with that. I can be your money mentor, your accountability partner. Or if you don't have access to me, maybe it's someone that you admire who does manage their finances well, or someone that you can trust to provide you with financial socialization that is actually sound and that it could actually get you somewhere. And what if your significant other became your ally instead of your enemy? And I know that could be a whole level of counseling sessions that would be required to get to that place. But marital financial counseling and even premarital financial counseling is actually a thing. And then financially socializing your children in such a way to where they can become financially independent as well. And through this whole concept, operating from your strengths and not your weaknesses. This is where you can challenge your money mindset and focus on what you've done well and doing more of that. There's a famous Japanese proverb that states, "When you're thirsty, it's too late to dig a well." And then there's another proverb, "If you do nothing during a difficult time, your strength is limited." So again, if first we plan and do the things that we know we must do, so when the time comes, we are prepared for that event. But if also we work from a place of strength rather than vulnerability or liabilities or weaknesses, then we feel more confident and competent in moving towards that direction. So, last thing with this metaphor, sunlight is a natural disinfectant. It's time to expose those financial places where the sun hasn't shined in months or years. If you want something different, you must do something different. And that is through that financial exposure therapy. And again, clinical therapy not implied, but you are exposing yourself to approaching the numbers, recording the numbers, experimenting with the numbers, practicing, and noticing when change is occurring. And then finally, transitions or recalculating. So for those folks that may have said, hey, if I knew that I were going to have some level of financial hardship, what 3 things would I do differently? A lot of folks did state that they would polish their resume. And this is a time for you to practice your elevator speech, update your resume, know your worth. So if you did have to prepare for a new job, how can you shine? How can you show someone that you have what it takes to remain employable? As federal employees, we should never get to a place of feeling where we're untouchable and we could never be released. When we got the 5-bullet summary email that very first time, I printed out the email and I took it home and I talked to my girls about it. I said, a lot of folks don't like this 5-bullet summary that we have to give the Secretary of Defense every week. However, I'm excited about it because somebody is asking me, hey, what did you do last week? What difference did you make last week? And I thought, this is fantastic. This is an opportunity to dust off all the stagnation that may have been present and actually show, hey, here are the wonderful things that our team, that our staff, that we're doing to improve the lives of others. And by doing so, we're improving our worth. We're creating job security for ourselves. So I told my girls, always be ready to answer a 5-bullet summary. And that is my encouragement to you as we close out on today's discussion on navigating financial uncertainty. Always have a 5-bullet summary of how you can improve your finances. Until next time, be sure to review and rate the pod wherever you listen. We thank you for listening.